Hi and welcome to this video in which we're going to spend a few moments just thinking about ledger lines in the bass clef. Lots of players are great when it comes to reading music and they can fly through it until they meet a ledger line, and that's the thing that makes them trip up. So I do think it's quite a good idea just to learn some ledger lines actually. We spend so much of our lives learning notes inside the stave when we start to learn, and then we bump into these ledger line things later on in life and we sort of think, oh yeah, what's this one? And quite a good idea just to sit down and learn up to say 3 ledger lines above the stave and 3 ledger lines below the stave. But let's see how we get on today. Well, this one in the bass clef is middle C. I think most people who are bass clef readers would be pretty happy about that. This one in the bass clef, 2 lines beneath the bass clef, is also a C, and that's a really useful location point, just to know that 2 ledger lines below the bass clef is C. Furthermore, the 2 ledger lines remind us that it's the C that's 2 octaves below middle C. So if this one's middle C here, this C here on 2 ledger lines is there, the same C but 2 octaves below. And it means that you can use these 2 as your starting points for calculating ledger lines if you need to work them out. So when I look at this note, instead of doing what lots of people do, which is to start on the top line and think, well, this one's A, so the space above it's B, this one's C, this one's D, which takes you till Christmas. You can actually think, well, this one's C. I don't need to do every single note, because if I'm going from a line to a line to a line, or space to a space to a space, I'm just missing out the note in between. I'm doing every other note. So C, E, G, and this is the space above G, so it must be A. So you can very quickly, if you don't know that note, just think C, E, G, it's A, is the space above that G line. And when we come to notes like this, well, we know that 2 ledger lines beneath the bass clef stave is C. So I could go C, B, A, but I could just drop down in thirds. C, A, F, E. Do you see how I did that? C, A, F. So this one is E. Look at the next one. Goodness me, that looks like a long way up, doesn't it? Well, we know this one is C. So count up the ledger lines. C, E, G, B, D. So that's a D. So if you think about it, it's D that's an octave and a note above middle C. So if this is middle C, then this is this D up here, which is a pretty high note in the bass clef, let's face it. Any composer who was thinking sensibly would perhaps have changed the clef and written that in a treble clef, or written it down an octave with an 8 sign over it. But there are people who write these extreme things, and therefore it's good just to be able to get there quickly, isn't it? Getting to this note should be very quick when you think about it, because if we know that 2 ledger lines below the bass clef is C, it's in the space below C, so it's bang next door to it, isn't it? But we're going down, aren't we? So it's 1 before C, it's B. So quickly getting your way around the ledger lines, such a useful thing to do. So do sit and learn up to 3 ledger lines above a clef and below a clef that you're going to use to play your instrument or to sing, so you just know them. But use these as quick fire ways of doing them. And when you play these notes on ledger lines, make sure you're in the correct octave. So you can use this to locate yourself and think, yeah, I know that C 2 octaves below middle C, so it's there. So if I'm looking at this one, it must be this one, a note below there. So you're always in the right octave when it comes to ledger lines. But do your best to remove the fear factor from reading ledger lines.